I once heard a man describe his wife. The moment I saw her, I was captivated by her beauty and couldn't resist. The moment she spoke, I knew someone had beat me to it. That was my Samantha, as stupid as she was beautiful. I met Sam when she was being fired for crashing my client's computer network by downloading a cute kitty video. Unfortunately, said kitty was actually a vicious malware lioness in disguise. She looked like she needed a friend, so I offered to carry the box containing her personal property as the head of security escorted her off the premises. Okay, I admit I thought I would have no trouble getting into her clothes if I befriended her. I soon learned she never wore any under her short skirts. Fast forward 6 months. Her childlike simplicity and unquenchable appetite for love won me over, and I asked her to move in with me. 6 months later, we were married. The night before our wedding, I took her arms and said, "I will be your champion, slaying dragons and breaching castles for your amusement. I pledge my eternal love and devotion." All I asked and demanded from her was absolute fidelity. "If you ever so much as kiss another man in a romantic way, our marriage is over. You will not get a second chance. No, I will destroy you and whoever was foolish enough to incur my wrath." "I love you and would never do that," Sam swore. The first 2 years of our marriage were so incredible, and all our friends were jealous. Sam excelled as a spoiled wife. She spent her days exercising or being pampered at the spa. We ate dinner out almost every night in Chicago's finest restaurants. I draped her magnificent body in designer clothes, suitably ornamented in the finest jewelry. I loved showing her off. Then one day she announced she was bored and wanted to get a job. Try as I might, I couldn't shake her determination. I even offered to stake her to her own business, a high-end boutique, anything she wanted. "No, I want to do this on my own," she answered. Much later, I learned 2 divorced friends from the health club had sowed the seeds of discontent in my wife. These bitter women had lost their husbands to younger women and took a perverted joy in ruining happy marriages. Week after week, they worked on Sam until they convinced her she was not being appreciated by me, and the key to her freedom was getting a job so she would have her own money. So Sam set off into the workforce in search of a position that would complete her. Now, a beautiful woman wearing a $500 dress has no problem getting an interview. Her problem came when they asked her hard questions like, "What office skills do you possess?" After 3 months, she had been on dozens of interviews. However, no one had so much as called her back to say, "Sorry, we don't have a position for your unique skill set." At least that's what the form letter I send out to unqualified losers says. Then one afternoon, she came home so excited she could barely speak. She had been hired as a personal assistant. I asked her a few easy questions like who hired you and what your job responsibilities are. Sam forgot the company's name but was sure she could find it again. The only thing she remembered was the position involved travel. "With whom?" I asked. She rummaged through her $1,000 Gucci bag and found a business card. "There," she announced. "I'll be working for Andrew V. Carter and Associates." The card was a cheap rectangle of white cardstock with black ink. It had no color or graphics, just Andrew V. Carter, president, CEO, and a phone number. What a cheap jerk, I thought. And what exactly does Andrew V. Carter and Associates do? "It has something to do with importing, or was it exporting things?" she answered. I took my wife in my arms and looked her square in the eyes. "Samantha, I have a bad feeling about this. Let me check him out." That led to our first ever knockdown, drag-out argument. "You don't want me to succeed. You only want me to hang on your arm like a Barbie doll." Truth be told, that was really all she was qualified to do. Sam was as stubborn as could be. She dug in her heels and refused to listen to anything I had to say. She squared her jaw and glared at me. I knew that look meant she would take a beating rather than admit she was wrong. It tore my heart, but I said, "I hope it's not too late when you open your eyes to the truth." I discreetly had my investigators launch a full investigation of Carter. On Sunday evening, I received an email with a full dossier. Carter was a two-bit importer of knockoff products which they sold to dollar stores. A significant portion of their business was generated at regional trade shows, which is where Sam came in. The present sales staff was all male, age 50+. Sales were way down, as Chinese manufacturers were cutting out the middlemen, jobbers as they were known in the trade, and selling directly. With a big trade show coming up in New York, Carter had met with his sales staff to brainstorm a solution. The future of the company hung on this show. The idea had been floated that the easiest way to increase sales was to have a beautiful woman in a short make that very short skirt and revealing blouse man the booth. Sam had a closet full of outfits that met the uniform requirements. It was obvious Carter didn't want a personal assistant. He wanted a guy magnet. Things were pretty quiet on Sunday. On Monday morning, Sam was dressed to the nines. I complimented her and offered to drive her to work. She surprised me and said yes. I surprised her with an Italian leather briefcase. Sam accepted my gift with, "I'm going to do you proud." Carter's warehouse had definitely seen its better days. It was a rambling 3-story building which, if it ever knew paint, was only a nodding acquaintance at best, and it was a long time ago. Even the sign was faded. Sam looked nervous as she surveyed the ramshackle building. After a couple of minutes, she leaned towards me and planted a kiss on my lips, an act which she had denied me since Friday. "I guess this is it." "I guess it is." "I'll pick you up at 5, I replied. She kissed me again and said, "I love you." "I love you too," I responded. That day dragged on forever. I was waiting at the end of the block for the clock to flash 5. When it did, I pulled up in front of the main entrance. A score of men wearing cheap suits walked out in a gaggle. That must be the sales force, I thought. A few minutes later, a handful of older women left. All were dressed for working in a warehouse. I waited 10 minutes before I entered the lobby. I could hear Sam laughing in the distance. I spied a bell on the receptionist's desk and rang it with vigor. My wife called out, "I'll be right out." The moment I met her new boss, I immediately recognized him as Lotario. The bastard didn't even extend his hand to shake mine. He just gave me a smarmy smile. The moment we pulled away, I warned my wife, "He watched you like a lion stalking a gazelle." "Don't be silly, he's just a good salesman. Always on," she answered. "Good salesman, I highly doubt it. The man wholesales knockoffs made by slave labor. He, like his products, appeals to the dregs of civilization." Sam didn't speak again until I pulled up at one of our favorite restaurants. Tuesday morning, Sam again dressed like she was going to a dance. When I asked her why she was so dressed up to work in a dilapidated warehouse, she announced she knew how to get to work and would be driving herself. She walked out without answering my question or kissing me goodbye. That evening, she came home excited after a day learning their product line. She even had a bag full of junk. I did my best to feign interest as she described each. 3 bad things happened in the second week. Sam, still overdressing, began going to lunch with Carter so they could discuss the product line. She also started to work late with him to prepare for the New York trade show. The last straw was she stopped answering my phone when I called because they were too busy with work. The storm hit the house on Thursday when Sam came home a few minutes before 10. I gave her an ultimatum. Quit the job or else. "Don't be such a drama queen. It's just a training period. After the trade show, things will settle down." I begged her to quit, and again offered to stake her to her own business, a store in the mall, anything she wanted. Again, she demanded I let her succeed on her own. On Friday, Sam ignored 10 phone calls and didn't get home until after 11. I was waiting at the door when she came in. "Is there a problem with your phone?" I asked. Sam instantly became a raging woman because I didn't trust her. "I would never stand in your way if you got a big career opportunity." "Big career opportunity? You're making minimum wage. The jewelry you have on is worth more than his whole business." Sam spit venom with her response. Why don't you trust me? I trust you. I don't trust Carter. I have seen far too many guys like him. Besides, what exactly are your qualifications for this job other than being beautiful? Is there a reason why you're dressing like a model to learn about a 99-cent piece of plastic in a filthy warehouse? The storm really hit the house. We have a 3-day-long trade convention in New York next week, and I'm going whether you like it or not. Get used to it. Then get used to living alone, because if it goes like this, I'm afraid it will. I won't be here when you return. Our marriage will be over. I can't believe you said that. You and I should be planning how we'll spend my paycheck check. We could save it for a vacation to Europe, anywhere you want. Europe? Hawaii? Are you high? You're making $13 an hour before taxes. You couldn't even afford to buy us a steak dinner with your paycheck, I replied. Sam stormed out of the room and locked herself in the bathroom. We did not speak all weekend. On Monday morning, a limousine picked her up. I kissed her one last time and said, "You've made your choice. I hope you can live with it." She didn't respond. It took some doing, but I had arranged for a private investigator to get the seat across from her and Carter on the flight east. The cheap bastard flew coach. My man guaranteed he would be able to provide audio and video of their entire trip. I was foolish enough to have expected a phone call from Sam to say they had arrived safely. Instead, I heard from my private investigator. They were giddy as schoolgirls who thought they were getting away with something. Carter kept putting his hand on her thigh. She protested the first few times, but finally let him touch her. I damn near smashed my phone. He then said he would be handing off surveillance to an associate so they don't recognize him. I had a hell of a time not calling Sam and telling her I knew what they were doing, but that hadn't worked before, so I invested my time in planning phase 2 of my plan. That evening, I received a detailed text from my private investigator. They spent most of the day in business-related functions. Unfortunately, at 6, they went to their rooms and changed for dinner. I didn't recognize the little black dress Sam had on. The detective's instructions were not to intervene unless it looked like Carter was forcing Sam to do something. They were to observe and document. It was killing me, but she had to choose our marriage of her own free will. But that wouldn't stop me from giving it one last try. I watched the video of them walking into the restaurant hand in hand in real time. I called my wife, but it went straight to voicemail. So I called the restaurant and had Mrs. Samantha Weatherstone paged. She was none too happy I was checking up on her. "I worked hard all day and am having dinner in a snack shop. You have some nerve calling me to check up," she answered. "Well, maybe if you had answered any of my calls or texts, I wouldn't have to track you down. Samantha, I love you more than life itself. That is why I'm giving you a last chance to save our marriage. I know you're not eating in a snack shop. This is the first time you've ever lied to me, and I'm willing to forgive you if you tell Carter you quit. There will be a first-class ticket waiting for you at the airport. Please, if you love me, if our marriage..." The phone went dead. My wife had hung up on me. On us. My private investigator streamed me a video of Sam drinking with Carter. That bastard heard our conversation, and I could tell he sensed he had picked right when he hired Sam. He acted like he owned her, pawing her as he plied her with liquor. An hour later, my man sent a video of them going into his room. I had to turn my phone off because I couldn't bear to watch the feed from the cameras they planted in Carter's room. Later, after a couple of stiff drinks, I listened and heard him saying stuff like, "What a shame it was her husband didn't want her to succeed. He said I was jealous of her success. Stick with me and I'll make you the most successful saleswoman in the business." My idiot wife ate up his line of nonsense and ended our marriage. My next call was to some associates at the convention center in New York. Carter had already verified his truck had arrived that morning and was waiting to be unloaded. Inside was the booth, the largest and most lavish at the trade show, and thousands of catalogs and tens of thousands of free samples. The booth would occupy twice as much space as his largest competitor. It featured the finest in video and lighting effects. Minutes later, Carter's 40-foot intermodal container vanished from the loading dock. It would turn up empty a week later at a truck stop in New Jersey. I spent the night sitting in my recliner, hoping against hope Sam had come to her senses. The next morning, my private investigator confirmed they spent the night in his room and had intimacy. He treated your wife like a street woman. The moment they got in the room, he pulled her dress off. Then he pushed her on the bed, took off the clothes, and did the deed. He didn't wear a protection. 30 seconds later, he was finished, brushed his teeth, and announced he was going to sleep. I began to cry. After a few minutes, your wife rolled onto the other side of the bed. The private investigator said it didn't look like she had a moment's sleep. I could hear her crying most of the night. I tried to control my anger as I placed 2 more calls, this time local. I said exactly 1 word to each: go. The next morning, I had the concierge slip a note under Carter's door addressed to my wife. I called your room all night, but there was no answer. I guess that means goodbye forever. The private investigator said she screamed and started crying hysterically about how she made a huge mistake, and Carter had better stay far away from her or else. What do I care? I've had a lot better than you. Now get your clothes on, you've got a job to do. He picked up her dress off the floor and threw it at her. Sam begged him to give her a return ticket. He laughed in her face and called her a stupid, cheating woman. If you want to get back home, you better get your back ready to tease my customers. Sam ramped up the volume. You got me drunk and raped me. I didn't force you to do anything. If you call the police, they'll take one look at how you were dressed and know you're a cheating woman. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. It was one of the salesmen. Sam grabbed her dress and scurried into the bathroom. Carter opened the door naked, holding Sam's clothes. He wanted to make sure Angelo knew he had scored. Boss, we've got a big problem. I was in the convention hall checking out our space, but nothing was there. What do you mean nothing was there? Carter asked. I mean nothing. The booth isn't there. None of the boxes. No samples. Nothing. I talked to a guy at the dock and he said the truck wasn't there. Carter turned pure white. All he could manage to say was, damn. It took a while for Sam to compose herself enough to call me. She evidently decided to play it stupid, a frame of mind at which she excelled. I didn't answer, but let it go straight to voicemail. Even though I knew it wouldn't change anything, I had to know if Sam was going to own up to her actions. I was sorry I listened because all she did was lie. I'm sorry, honey. I took a sleeping pill and didn't hear the phone. She had the nerve to say, I love you. Please call me when you get this message. She called every 10 minutes after that. I ignored everyone. Instead, I called my lawyer and told him to prepare the divorce papers. Carter, meanwhile, was melting down. The trade show opened in 30 minutes and he had nothing. He began making frantic phone calls. The police were no help. Cameras covering the truck dock showed a white truck without any license plates or name had driven away with it last night. They said a detective would be by in an hour or so to investigate. Carter called the warehouse and told them to get together all the catalogs and brochures they had and get them on the next flight to New York. There were pretty slim pickings. Carter ended up spending the day sitting on a borrowed bar stool in front of a cardboard sign he had made at an office supply store. His sales staff looked awkward trying to sell invisible products. Sam looked like hell as she stood by herself in a corner, crying softly. Andrew Carter and Associates quickly became the subject of ridicule among the attendees. His Chinese competitors, whose booth was right across the aisle, smiled politely and bowed towards him every time they passed out one of their endless bags of swag. A pallet full of boxes finally showed up late on the second day of the show. Their contents, however, were outdated catalogs and last year's no longer hot products. My man said a few people stopped by to talk to Carter, but no one wanted to place an order with a jobber who most agreed wouldn't be in business in 3 months. Instead, his competition sucked up all the orders. By the end of the second day, Carter was a broken man. He finally acquiesced to Sam's demand that he let her go home. He was filled with rage as he screamed, "When we get back to Chicago, I never want to see you again." Carter gathered his sales staff and told them to soldier on even as he beat a hasty retreat. He directed one of them to trade in their tickets and get them a flight home as soon as possible. Sam wasn't very happy when she learned the flight didn't leave until 10 the next morning and spent the night locked in her room. She dutifully texted me her flight information. Flight 901 arriving at O'Hare Field tomorrow morning at noon. Then she added, "I miss you." Even though they sat next to each other, neither spoke. Carter was too busy trying to figure out how to restructure his line of credit since he no longer had any receivables to collateralize it. Sam stared straight ahead and prayed the whole flight that she would be able to salvage her marriage. One of the fringe benefits of working for a venture capitalist is I knew people who could make things happen without wasting time on paperwork. These are people who exist in the darkest of shadows, and a lot of them owed me favors. Big favors. The 2 phone calls I made earlier had put everything in motion. I knew she would be wheels up on the airplane at 9 a.m. local time. I waited until the plane was airborne and she was out of communication to cancel both of our cell phones. Next, I canceled all of our credit cards and transferred every last dime we had in the bank to a Shill account. By noon, the money would be untraceable. Some jerk in a black robe might say she's entitled to half, but she can go flip herself. There was a knock on my door, and a team of movers began packing all of my personal property for storage. I reclaimed all of the jewelry that hadn't made the trip to New York. 20 minutes after the movers left, a bulldozer and a small crane were unloaded in my driveway. No questions were asked, they just began reducing my $500,000 house to a neat pile of rubble. When they were done, they also vanished into the mist like the mythical Brigadoon. My detective had a seat the row behind Sam. He said neither spoke a single word on the flight. The moment they landed, she tried to power up her cell phone. She got really nervous when she learned her service was canceled. Sam damn near ran down the jetway to get to a payphone. A man in a black suit holding a sign with her name stood in front of the pack of departing passengers. She assumed it was the limo driver to take her home and asked if she could borrow his phone. "Are you Mrs. Samantha Weatherstone?" "Yes, I am. Now, could I please borrow your phone?" she answered. He handed her a large manila envelope. "You've been served, and no, you can't borrow my phone." Sam was getting frantic. "I don't see our driver," Carter said. "Get the hell away from me or I'll scream." Sam found a phone bank and tried my cell phone. She got "This number has been disconnected" message. Then she tried my office number, the one I told her was for emergencies only, and was advised no one by that name worked there. I had already left for my new position at our Los Angeles office. Terror gripped her as she remembered the envelope. She tore it open and read, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." Samantha dropped to her knees, sobbing. Pictures of her naked with her boss fell out. What she didn't know was his wife was getting an identical set of pictures delivered at that same instant. Airport security was alerted to a woman having a medical problem, and a team arrived to render assistance. One of them claimed her bags while the paramedics tried to determine what her problem was. A security guard spotted the divorce decree and discreetly passed the word. She begged them to help her get a taxi. "I have to get home before it's too late," she begged. Since she wasn't trying to drive, they cooperated and got her a cab. She pleaded with the driver to go faster. When they got close to her tiny subdivision, she sat forward and began telling the driver where to turn. As they rounded the bend, Sam looked puzzled, then let out a blood-curdling scream as she realized her house no longer existed. The driver wanted to get away from the crazy lady and demanded his $45 fare. She was numb as she handed him her credit card. He tried running it. "It is no good." She tried every card she had. All were rejected. "If you do not have money, I will call police," said the driver. Sam started rifling her pockets and finally came up with the fare. The driver placed her bags on the sidewalk and laid rubber to get away. Samantha dropped to the ground. She could barely breathe. Everything was gone. All her dreams were shattered. Carter's day ended as badly as it had begun. A couple of my associates followed him to his North Shore home. They were driving a pickup truck they borrowed when the driver ran into a convenience store for a pack of cigarettes. They watched from down the street as Carter got out of the limo and walked to the front door, his shoulders drooping. He never even made it to the front door before his wife charged outside and thundered, "Keep walking, you no good cheating son of a blip." She waved the pictures of him with Sam on his face. Carter was speechless as his wife verbally assaulted him. A couple of the neighbors came outside to see what was going on. Carter's BMW was parked in the driveway, and he was able to get inside while she pounded on the windshield. "I'm going to divorce your cheating back." She picked his suitcase up and smashed it against the glass, shattering it. Carter backed over his lawn to make his getaway. He never even noticed he was being followed. Carter stopped at a bar and ordered a double Scotch neat. He washed that down with another. An hour and 3 stiff drinks later, Carter made things easy as he drove to his warehouse. That same night, Andrew Carter and Associates' offices and warehouse burned to the ground. It was the lead story on the news for 2 days. It was the most impressive fire, with trucks from 7 suburban departments joining in the battle. You might remember the flames licking up to the sky as they purified the earth from the stench of Andrew Carter. It was still smoldering the next day when firemen were able to enter to strike down hot spots. The fire burned so intensely from all the paper and plastic that it took another 2 days for the arson investigators to find the charred remains of Carter. The skull had a big hole in it. A pistol with 1 bullet missing was found a few feet away. The body was so consumed the coroner couldn't tell Carter had been tortured for over 6 hours before he was allowed to blow his brains out. They were able to verify him using dental records. I hear the pain was so intense he begged to be allowed to kill himself. They were very careful not to break any bones. But boy, did they inflict pain with a propane blowtorch, melting his flesh off the bone. The coroner's inquest panel ruled his death a suicide. Their sequence of events said he was despondent over the missing truck and complete failure at the trade show, followed by his wife throwing him out for having an affair. Then he got drunk, turned off the sprinkler system, and set fire to his warehouse. As the flames approached his office, he placed a gun barrel in his mouth and committed suicide. The insurance company also had a team of arson investigators combing through what little was left of the sprawling building. Their colleagues in forensic accounting verified Carter's loan would have been called and pursued their investigation as an arson for profit fire. Eventually, they denied his widow's insurance claim. Because one man couldn't keep his pants closed, his wife and children lost their homes, 20 people lost their jobs, and I lost the only woman I ever loved. As for the 2 witches who caused all this sadness, I was assured they would never cause anyone trouble again. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.